America. My name is Osei-Frimpong, and this is the first inaugural show of the Black Athenians, where we do local politics. That's right here in these United States, in Athens, Georgia. We're doing local politics, and if we can figure out the issues, this is the hypothesis. If we can figure out the issues right here in Athens, Georgia, that means we can figure it out in Mobile, we can figure it out in Savannah, we can figure it out in Columbia, we can figure it out in St. Petersburg. If we can figure it out in Athens, Georgia, we can figure it out in Gainesville. And I'm here with my special guest today, Yvette Carnell from Breaking Brown. Say something.
Hey, everybody. Hey, if you're watching this, you're probably watching this on Osei-Frimpong, the Funky Academic. Take the time to subscribe to the channel. Take the time to like. Take the time to share to your own Facebook page, your own Facebook groups, because none of this stuff works if we can't expand the conversation.
All right. So, the goal of this show is actually to clarify how local politics works in Athens, and then maybe if you have any questions about how you can expand this model to your town, you can send me an email at irami@thefunkyacademic.com. Once again, that's irami, IRAMI, at thefunkyacademic.com. Now, let's just go to the show. Everyone's very busy. Let's just talk about what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about rights, right? There's a great book called Crisis of the Negro Intellectual by Harold Cruz. It came out in '68, and in the introduction of that book, he actually says something that I've been thinking about for a decade, and it's kind of shaped my studies, but it's definitely shaped my awareness of political thought and some of the struggles we face as Black people in these United States. He says that for all of our talk in the United States, for all of our talk of rights and individual rights, and all of our talk about the rights of individuals and property rights of individuals and what we can do as individuals, America doesn't run like that. America has never run like that. America is a nation where all of our rights and rights claims are backed up and enforced by groups. And Black people, we are not in the most powerful group. So Cruz names like, look, all of your rights claims are really backed up by your groups, and the most powerful groups in the United States right now, and he was writing in '68, he said, like, look, you have rights if you're a white Protestant, you have rights if you're a white Catholic, and you have rights if you're a white Jewish person. But since our group isn't one of those three groups, our rights are very slim. And this is Cruz writing in '68. That means you don't have rights as an American individually unless they're backed up by groups. Now that sounds like a harsh thing to say. However, Black people, if you know the work Yvette and I have done for the last year, you know that the median net worth, if you adjust for a handful of durable goods in the Black community, is $1,700. That means if you get fired wrongly at work, or if you get kicked out of your house, that's not enough money to hire a lawyer. And unless your friends are lawyers, and I think we have a few lawyers in the audience right now, but unless you know somebody, you really don't have a right, because rights claims are worked out in court. So you're really at the privilege of whatever legal aid or free legal service that you can find, but that's not a right. It's not guaranteed. You're at the privilege of someone else. So these things we call rights, these things we call individual rights, are really privileges backed up by your group. And the stronger your group, the more privileges you have. And let's be clear, this is not a situation where you can be neutral. In the United States, other people are using their privileges to get what you think you have. Right? And I'll say that again. In the United States, other people are using their privileges to get what you think you have. So, insofar as we have rights, we'd all be equal. Insofar as what we think are rights are really just privileges backed up by your social group, we're not in the strongest position. We're looking to get 8. And now, for us to have rights, they would have to be backed. For anybody to have rights, they would have to be backed up by the government, because that's the only entity that backs up individuals unilaterally. However, If we're talking about group power, and can you give me a two-shot? If you're talking about group power, the major group that backs us up, since we can't back ourselves up, is the nonprofit sector. All right? So we're not backed up by black people because, like I said before, our median net worth is $1,700 relative to the median white net worth in that same study. This is a study by Edward Wolf, came out in 2013, called Household Incomes, U.S. Household Incomes from 1962 to 2013, is $116,000. So Edward Wolf is an economist at NYU. I'm not just making these numbers up. You can Google the study. But the problem is, and this ends with the notion that we don't actually have the quality of social capital to back our privileges. And since these are privileges at disproportionate rates, nobody has rights, and we don't even have privileges as black people. And that's a problem because now we have to depend on the charity of people who are not in our group. All right? And how's that worked out? Not particularly well. Not particularly well. Because there's a difference between justice and charity. All right? Justice can be demanded. Justice can be contended for. Charity, I have to make sure, and since this is Athens, everyone will know what I'm talking about. And since I am so far, we'll talk about how this all got funded later. But since I'm so far independent, I can name names. Like in Athens, if you're black and you don't have money, but you need funding for a group, you find a way to get to Burtis Downs. You find a way to get to Burtis Downs. That's the way you get funded. He's the guy with money who funds things on occasion, but that's not independence. That's like your rights claims being backed by a white guy in Athens who happened to have made money being REM's lawyer, and who is now out of his largesse occasionally from time to time, if you're nice enough or if he likes you, funds your group. That is not justice. That's our rights claims being turned into privileges, being backed by someone else's charity. Right? We don't have justice, we have charity. But right now we're at a space where we need one of them or we're going to get eaten by other people who use their privilege to take what we think we have. But since they're not rights and since they're not backed by rights, if Burtis isn't going to pay for my lawyer, that means I don't have a lawyer. This is a problem for our justice. The inequality in resources that can be weaponized against us by other groups is a problem for what we think are our rights. All right? So if they were our rights, they would be backed by government. Since they're not our rights, they're backed by charity. Since we need to show the appearance of having rights for both ourselves and for the American story to work. We need the appearance of having rights. But insofar as they're backed by charity, they're not rights. You can't demand them. You can't contest them. There's at least one elected official here today in the audience. All right? We can talk, we can negotiate. I can try to hold him accountable. He can try to ask me for my vote, and we can talk about that. That's a relationship of accountability. Whatever it is Burtis Downs has with the groups that he funds isn't accountability. That's his discretion. That's not a relationship that we need. That's not a relationship of right. That's a relationship of our charity. Now, why are we at the charity? Why are we at a position that we need charity? Well, in Athens, Georgia, we're in a position that we need charity because we've been terrorized out of our economic and political power.
That was a long time ago, though, right?
That was a long time ago.
What do you do about that argument?
Really? That was a long time ago, right? All right, so there was a Reconstruction argument.
You got a shirt on, you got shoes.
Yeah, I got a shirt on, I got shoes. I'm looking all right. I got
snazzy.
Cameras taken over by some nice white people. It's fine. No, look, what's the problem? All right, so there was a Reconstruction office in Athens, Georgia after the Civil War. Now, the Civil War was, in 1860s. That was a long time ago. This Reconstruction Office was a Union garrison that ensured that the Civil Rights Act of 1866, that is the Civil Rights Act that said that we were supposed to be economically included in civil society, that was enforced, right? Because it turns out that once the Southerners lost the war, they still had an attachment to their way of life. Would you believe Southerners appreciate the Southern way of life, and they just weren't going to like, well, we lost the war.
How could you appreciate being on the top of a hierarchy?
They didn't want to give up their position. They didn't want to give up their position because if you know white people like I know white people, they love sharing power. Just like here, black people have some power. Have some power. Have all the power.
You're not talking about individual white, but we have to. We're talking about a system.
No, we're talking about a system that acculturates. Like white culture is not a culture that shares power. Like it hasn't been in colonialism. It wasn't in America. Like it's not a culture that shares power. So this is an acculturated system, and black people as biological entities are not poor. We're poor because of a system that has like cut us out of a lot of economic and political power. This isn't about biology. This is about cultural systems that have racialized us. And so this show, The Black Athenians, is an intervention on that cultural system to make sure that everybody gets their cut. That's all I want. I'm not trying to rule over anybody. Like, I don't want like black supremacy over the United States. I want black people to get their cut and have their rights, not backed by someone's charity.
I'm speaking for myself. I kind of want to rule over some stuff. I just want to make sure I put that out there and put an asterisk over that. I would like to have a little bit of power, but thank you.
I want
equality versus advantage.
So what's the advantage for like generations, or like you want it forever?
I want it for generations, like 400 years.
400
How's
years.
that?
400 years.
I didn't just pick that number out of a
So it's all right. There's multiplicities in our people. Mm-hmm. I want a fair share. I want a cut. And actually, I don't want to call it a fair share because fair can mean all sorts of things. Fair could mean advantage for a while because if you don't notice, once acculturated white people get, even poor ones, once they get political power, once they get economic power, it's not as if they become nice white people who share it with us. Once they get the power, once we give it to everybody, they use it against black people. Now that I have money, I can move to the suburbs.
And it's not like a point to be made. It's not necessarily because these are bad people.
No.
Like society is structured in such a way that like being around black people is a cost. There is no social capital. There is no money. You have nothing to trade.
It's worse than
so
that. It's worse than that. It's not just that there's nothing to gain from them. You are surrounded by poverty.
Yes.
Would you rather be surrounded by people with $100,000 net worth? Or would you rather be surrounded by people
with negative? Not even just negative. 1,700 is negative.
That's negative. You can't have an accident.
You might as well say you don't have money. If you just have a little over $1,000, you might as well say I don't have any money. Because what can you withstand in the richest country in the world with 1,700?
Take a shock. You can't withstand Hurricane Irma.
You can't even fix your transmission.
Forget your house.
No.
So like it's not their fault. They want to flee from us. It's math, right? So we're not divided by we're divided by math. So people who say like, you're being so divisive when you call people black, you call people white. No. What's divisive isn't me. What's divisive is the math that says one group gets $1,700 net worth, the other gets $100K. And as we'll learn, that group that has $100K has it because the group that has $1,700 was terrorized out of their wealth. So we had a Union garrison in Athens, Georgia, right here in Athens, Georgia. We had a Union garrison that was the Freedmen's Bureau that was supposed to secure our rights as black people. White people didn't like that. Lasted about 4 years, depending on the document. And when the Freedmen's Bureau left, you know who moved in? Not more Union soldiers. Would you believe it was the Klan?
The Klan is nice white people with robes, though.
They got robes, you know.
I mean, they were unfriendly.
Prince, would you believe that they were not about to share power?
It wasn't even they were not about to share power. They were going to terrorize the whole community. It's not like they were politicians who just didn't want to share power. Like they were terrorists.
They were terrorists. They're terrorists. So we got rid of the Freedmen's Bureau and we sanctioned the Klan. The Klan had an office right there in downtown. There's a Klan office with all the right paperwork because, they're the good white people. There's bankers and lawyers and politicians.
Police officers.
Farm owners and police officers who, when they terrorize people as officially arms of the state during the daytime, during the nighttime, they would go change clothes, take a shower, change clothes, come back, and terrorize black people as unofficial arms of a sanctioned organization, a state-sanctioned organization. So that terrorism lasted from, officially, from the end of the Freedmen's Bureau on through the 60s. And later I'll bring up a picture of the Klan in Athens, Georgia, in the 60s, marching in broad daylight, in robes, in Athens, Georgia. And as a result of that political terrorism and economic terrorism, and that's like the non-state function. That's the state charter, but not the state allowed, state licensed, but not state chartered arm of anti-black terrorism. As a result of that terrorism, of political and economic terrorism, black people never really had political power in Athens. We had some economic power at the discretion of the white people. They'd say like, well, you can build up some black businesses here. We can call it Hot Corner. That's fine. Until we want it, in which case we want it, we're going to urban renewal your corner away and make it and just move it to the projects. And those aren't rights. Those aren't rights. We had businesses and what we call economic power at the discretion and at the pleasure of the white hierarchy that actually ran the town. So the black people we like to nostalgize. Well, we used to have black businesses in segregation. We used to have black businesses in the 20s. We used to have black businesses. And then what happened? Well, what happened was white people wanted your land or wanted your business. Am I overstating the case?
No, but isn't that what capitalism is supposed to do? Just take you off the board. Like, think about how easy it is to succeed if you just take a whole group of people off
the board
and just say they don't get to compete. As a matter of fact, not only do they not get to compete, we get to use them for free in terms of our wealth building mechanism.
Right. And
greatest country in the world.
No, that's how you make the richest country in the world. However, we get to use them strategically. When we want to use their labor, we use them, and then when we don't want to use them, we kick them out. When they're convenient for us, we use them, and then when they're not convenient for them, we shunt them out. That's the use of black labor in Athens. And that's why we have nationwide the disparity of 1,700 on one side and 100,000 on the other. It's very profitable strategically using black people when you want to. When you want something lifted, when you want something moved, and you don't want to pay, there's always black people. Or you want to pay a very little, there is black people. And that's how you build wealth. Yvette, tell me, could you build some wealth with some, slaves?
Oh, yeah.
Could you build wealth?
Yeah.
Do you have ideas of what you could do?
Oh, yeah.
It would be a lot easier.
Yeah, my life would be a lot easier, yeah. And it's not just building wealth. My whole life would be easier. I could just go out, walk at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Nobody gonna bother me.
Yeah, that's right.
Take my slave. My whole life would be easier. But yeah, you could. I mean, think about. But you have to think about. But you have to think about even with that in timing, right? Like they were building wealth when America was in incline. That was when America was on the way up. You think about all the wars we had, all the money that was made. You had people who were the barons of industry. If you read Outliers, they all come from that same period. They all come from that same period of time. And then you had another computer bubble where you had the same group of people like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates at the same time. That's because there was a door open for people who had access to certain schools. Bill Gates has access to a supercomputer. All of these things. If you're not in a position to capitalize on these things when it happens, you're just out. There is no way to come back later and be like, even if I had slaves, I can't come back and do what they did because I'm not during that time.
So I had slaves and a time machine.
I need resource. I need a time machine where I can be around when they're digging for oil. Like they already own the oil now. I need to be around during that time where people are building empires because those empires are still here. That wealth is still here and that poverty is still here. And we're stuck with the poverty and they got the wealth and they're not just giving it up willingly.
Well, no, they give it up on occasion by charity. That's why we have 501c3s. So 501c3 is the tax designation for a nonprofit for a particular kind of nonprofit that cannot do political work, but can do some charity work, can give out, can start a food bank. So the terrorism that locked black people out of political power in Athens started when the Freedmen's Bureau left. And it stayed, like I said, I got a picture from 1964. And if you think, 1964 is a long time ago. My mom was alive in 1964. My mom was an adult in 1964. 1964 is not a long time ago. So the terrorism that locked black people out of economic and political power existed until at least 1964. It became a little bit déclassé in the 70s. But Déclassé. Yeah, it was no longer couth to be just walking around in the hood. But like, it's not like those people lost their jobs or lost their money. We didn't confiscate anything. We just took their business license away. Like that's so the terrorism that locked black people out of political power and economic power, and locked them out in a way that had the appearance that we had power. You have the appearance that you have a store. But if you have a store and then all of a sudden, like, the city that's not run by you, or the neighbors who aren't you, or the university who's not you can just take it when they want it, that's not really your store. You're just renting on somebody else's land. Even if you're renting there for 4 years and you have like some sort of deed that says you own it. You don't own it because you can't contest it. And if you don't have political power, that means you can't contest it. Right? Or if the judges are also Klan members, even if you have a lawyer, you can't contest it. That means you are here at the pleasure of white Athens, black Athens. You are here at the pleasure of white Athens. And that is why we're poor and where we are, where they want us to be for as long as they want us to be, until we take political power. Right? So how this is managed, am I speaking a lie?
Oh, no, you're not telling a lie.
No,
I didn't sense a lie in there.
There's no lie here. So if you do not have political power, you don't have rights. If you don't have access to a lawyer who can outlast the people who want to take your stuff's lawyer, so it's not just having, I know a guy who's going to give me like a pro bono hour, and so I have rights. No, those aren't rights. That's not. If you don't have a legal defense fund that's at least as big as your opponent's legal defense fund, that means, and since like I'm in Athens, so like let's say the Chamber of Commerce wants your stuff, or someone in the Chamber of Commerce wants your stuff, and Doc Eldridge is like, look, I want that neighborhood. I want that block. You think you can stop him if you don't have a lawyer? And you think you can stop him with friends? If your friend is a lawyer who's going to give you a pro bono hour? No, he's going to take your block. And that's a problem. That's a problem. And that's a problem that comes when you don't have political and economic power. And that's a problem when your rights are given by like some charity legal fund, as opposed to like and as opposed to being rights as being an American, as being a citizen. We should get extra lawyers. Like Yvette said, it's not just that we need equal advantage.
And I need something better. I don't need just a.
I don't want an equal playing field. I need an advantage for a while, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I need an advantage for a while.
I need an advantage for a while.
And I need to pick my attorney to make an assessment. I don't just want any attorney. I just don't want any attorney you hand me and say, take this guy. I might decide that he's not any good. But the people who are good cost money.
And if you have money, if you have economic power, you can get the people who are good. So the idea that black rights are really weak privileges insofar as they depend on the black capital, which is much lower than white capital, are really weak privileges, and then can get a little bit of bump if you get charity from people who might not have your best interest at mind, or like at their discretion. My rights claims, like I said before, and I'll say this again, and maybe I'll put it on a bumper sticker, because I'm sure Bertie Stowns is a nice guy, but my rights claims should not be dependent on how he feels. My rights claims should not be dependent on donors. Now this equipment that allows us to have this show, and it's going to get tighter and it's going to get better if you stay with us. People, I'm going to make a pitch. Is this camera I'm working on? People, if you're watching this at home, yeah. All right, so people, if you're watching this at home and you like what we're doing and you want us to do it more and you want us to do it better and you want us to do it with staff and start paying people, just a few people, just enough to get this going and training lots of people, go to www.thefunkyacademic.com. That's www.thefunkyacademic.com and kick down for, I don't know, a little bit a month. Or if you have a lot, kick down for a lot a month. You'll see a panel on the right, and if you give us, what you can, we can make this bigger, we can grow black politics in Athens that will get black people in Athens the rights that they deserve. And they won't just be at someone's discretion. So in order to get this, and I'll tell my little non-profit story. I'm still on this camera. All right, so I'll tell my little non-profit story. In order to get the cameras we got and set this up in the Resource Center as an institution, it costs money. So I had to go around to different groups to see who had extra money. None of those groups are black because guess what? Would you believe we don't have a lot of extra money?
We come from slaves.
We come from slaves and terror victims. Terror victims. Because people say slavery's a long time ago. No, but terrorism's like yesterday. Black people still can't. I know 5 free Negroes. That means people who can say what they want to, when they want to, with white people in the room, and actually advocate for black people without maybe 10.
I don't know.
Well, we talked to Tommy. I think Tommy's free.
I don't think Tommy's free.
You don't think Tommy's free?
I think Tommy's doing his best to make himself free. I think freedom is a process.
Two-shot, Matthew.
I think freedom is a process, and I think he is working diligently to free himself, and ensuring that. But I didn't know how that stuff was going to turn out. You all have to look it up, and they'll have to look up the other show. But I don't see Oprah as free. That means that there's that you don't have any risk. What doesn't Discovery own half of her stuff with that own thing? How do you free when that's how you get your money?
Well, you can't be. Let's clear this up. And like I said before, I'm a PhD student studying philosophy, and I study alienation. You can't be free and alone at the same time. So if the idea of freedom is escaping your people and going to a suburb where everyone hates you, or doesn't even hate you, just isn't really about you, that's not freedom. That's being alone. So you can't be free and alone at the same time. So if you're a black billionaire surrounded by wolves.
Yeah, and that's part of what makes what Tommy did so courageous. That's part of what makes what these people do so courageous, is because there's an extreme risk in stepping out in that way. If they were free, it wouldn't be courage. There's nothing courageous about and we appreciate it when somebody who's a billionaire gives $1 million. That's a great thing. It's not an act of courage, though, because there's no risk in giving $1 million wherever you want to give it. Right. I think that's why when you look at people that we've mentioned, and we say that these people are courageous, that's because there's a large risk that in play. You risk your life when you say certain things, and we saw that recently.
Right. Yeah. So our rights claims cannot be backed by other people's charity. And instead of going to the government to get our rights claims backed as individual rights claims, the way that we teach kids that the rights claims are individual, instead of going to the government and have our rights claims backed by the state as individuals, we go to our groups. And black people, we do not have the strongest group, so we go to other people's group. And so I had to go to a white church. The church I attend, they have great daycare. It's a good church. But it is predominantly, when I say predominantly white, it's a white church with some black people. And they had some extra money, so I had to go in and get money from this church to put on the show, because everything in money costs, even black politics costs money. I had to go to this church with Broderick. This, by the way, since a lot of people in Athens are going to watch this is only made possible because of Broderick Flanagan, right? So this studio at the Resource Center in the Triangle, the Iron Triangle, we'll have pictures on it for future studios, is only made possible by the pluck and industriousness of one of our own entrepreneurs, Broderick Flanagan. So if you want a portrait painted of anything, you got to go to Google and put in Flanagan Studios. If you want a mural on your wall, if you want a mural in your backyard, if you are thinking about a little bit of art in your business, go to Flanagan Studios. You can just put that in, Flanagan Studios, in Google, and hit up Broderick. He's a wonderful artist, and he's also a small business consultant. And this is part, and this institution that we're doing here is part of what he's going to do to help market small black businesses and minority businesses to the community and to the world. All right? So Broderick had to go into our church and ask for some money because like black people don't have the kind of capital that we needed for the cameras and the equipment that are going to make this show excellent. And then we had to ask for charity. But we're trying to do the kind of quality of political education that will get us our rights, and our rights shouldn't be backed by charity. But we had to ask for their charity. And believe it, they really actually thought they were doing charity, and they feel like they were doing charity. But I told them, and I had to say, and then they, look, in the letter from the Birmingham jail, Martin Luther King was right when he said that like white moderates are a problem because they think that your freedom is a matter of their timetable. So they're going to string us out for as long as they string us out. And because when you're asking for charity, you can't make a demand, all right? And that's a problem. When you're asking for charity, you can't make a demand, so we had to be polite. But then I made the claim, and I treated it like, no, actually, this church has been here long enough, and this is a model. Like I said, if you can work in Athens, it can work where you're going. This is a model. This church has been here long enough. It has profited off of black labor. Don't think of this as charity. Think of it as justice. And if you're worried about like how you feel when you give to charity, and you don't feel that way having me talk to you as an equal and not a supplicant. And I know that like this is bringing up a lot of feelings in you, thinking that I can come here and demand justice. That's too bad because sometimes justice isn't about your feelings, although often charity is, and we're here for justice. So do the right thing. And kick down a little bit of money, and there's some tears involved. Not on my half, but like, look, if you're asking white people for money, there are going to be tears involved because they're not used to like, and they're not even asking, demanding. If you're demanding money from white people, like you think that you actually, and you're like, there's like tears on one side, and maybe guns on the other, whatever. But you gotta be prepared, people, to do this work. There are going to be tears involved, and you're going to have to go through those tears. And say that's nice that you're crying. That's nice that you're crying, but make that check out to cash when you're demanding your justice. And so you can do that with an elected official, and that's why our justice claim should not be run through nonprofits, because nonprofits then are accountable to their board of directors. And guess what? When you have $1,700 net worth in your community, you don't have a board of directors that runs the quality of nonprofit that can give people money, which means that the nonprofits you're going for, again, are at the discretion of a board of directors who are white, who may be apathetic or actively antagonistic due to the cultural formation of whiteness in America to your black justice claim. Am I speaking a lie yet, Yvette?
I'm scared of what you're doing.
You're scared of what I'm doing?
I couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it.
No, because I couldn't do it. Because the money we raised for the other show came from black people for the most part. I'm just going to ask you a question.
Yes, tell me.
Do you feel that you are...
biting the hand that feeds me?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, we need to bite a lot of hands, black people. This isn't going to work unless we get in the habit of biting hands. This wasn't justice, this was charity, and they had to cry to get through to do what they're doing. I'm grateful. I am grateful that they actually came around to seeing what we were owed and did the money and gave the money out of whatever place they gave it to allow us to do this. They're not getting it back. But insofar as our justice claim needs to be backed by white charity, we need to go to white charity as if they're justice claims and let them know. So there was a little bit of political education at that meeting in which the 501c3 group, the nonprofit allowed us, finally recognized what the black community might do. We told them what we were going to do. We told them we want a quality of black politics that will defend this this neighborhood and Black Athens in general, and that white people aren't particularly good at sharing power, and apparently, if they don't fund this, not particularly good at sharing funds. And at the end, like I said, after the tears, there were slides involved, and I had pictures of Klan members from 1964 who probably, I don't know, may have been part of that church. I don't know. I don't care. I just wanted my cut. And
this is a different kind of project.
this is a different kind of project. So yeah, this isn't something like, this is the way we're going to get our justice and our politics, because we do not have money. And the nonprofits are there to manage black poverty. That's the arm that manages black poverty, because you cannot get justice. They're not organized for justice, they're organized for charity. And insofar as black justice claims are transmuted into charity, they're not justice claims, they're management.
Okay, but let me.
So yeah, we're gonna have to bite many hands that feed us, insofar as those hands are white. But it's okay.
You're doing a lot of biting.
Well,
but let me just.
But the biting won't feel that bad when you realize it's not yours anyway. Like, it won't feel that bad, and I know you have all the feelings right now. Oh, white people watching home, you have all the feelings right now, and I feel for your feelings. But it's justice will not be on your timetable. So insofar as you have money, I guess that you give to justice and charity claims at your discretion, I'm going to demand it as a matter of right, not as a matter of charity at your discretion. And if you do the right thing and give it to us, you'll have the feeling of like fulfilling the mission that's probably on your mission statement right now. And that's a beautiful thing, right? And we'll have the feeling of a place that's on the trajectory towards justice, and that's what you get. You get my thank you, and you get my gratitude, and because I am grateful. But you're not going to get my obsequiousness. You're not going to get me. Obsequious just means kissing butt. Like you're not going to get that from me, and you shouldn't get it from any black people. I'm going to come to you as an equal. I'm going to make a justice claim, and if you don't agree with this justice claim, I'm going to contend it for as long as I can. And that's the way we need to structure our relationships with white people as justice claims, and with white groups as justice claims. Yes.
So if Amazon's Jeff Bezos or Microsoft's Bill Gates comes in, you gonna keep that temperament?
Yeah, I'm food. I might not stay long on this world, but let it be known that when they put me in the ground, I did it for black people trying to get a black politics that will make the quality of black life that's just about rights. That's just about rights. I don't want too much extra. I just want our due, and you can't have, and I can't just be like one black guy with like a little bit of money around like poverty or white people. I want black people to have money, because we say this on the show, but I'm going to say it here if you're just watching here. Wealth is not an individual property. Wealth is a community property. I'll say it again. Wealth is not an individual property. Wealth is a community property. So if all your people are broke, it doesn't matter how much you have. All your people are broke. And you probably have to turn off your phone because you can't answer it, because it's going to be people hitting you up for money. Wealth is being able to go to a gathering of your people and have no one hit you up for destitution. Like that, like it doesn't matter how much money you have if you're surrounded by poverty. I'll say it again. It doesn't matter how much money you have if you're surrounded by poverty. So the aim of this is to create a black middle class, not just a handful of wealthy black people. Black middle class, right? Because that's wealth and that's freedom. When you have a black middle class, that's freedom. And that's not the quality of charity that comes with a soup kitchen.
But he's going to tell you, okay.
Jeff Bezos.
Let me tell. We're going to go to Microsoft real quick.
Microsoft.
I'm eating. We've already gone to. Let's talk about the hookworms. For those who don't know, there are hookworms. It's a poverty disease, but there are hookworms in Loudoun, Alabama. It's mostly.
It's not just Loudoun, Alabama.
Well, that's one. That was the Guardian story. That was the Guardian story.
They're big enough you could see with your eyes.
Look up the Guardian story about the hookworms. It's a very specific story. They have hookworm. And they were talking about how, Bill Gates gives money abroad for infrastructure in a lot of African countries, and giving money and not giving money here. And if you ask him, he's probably going to say, or maybe he won't. I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth. But if I were him, I would probably say something like, coming with his background, not me as Yvette with his background. I would say that I'm not responsible for this infrastructure being this way to help out with this hookworm. I'm not responsible in it for Africa too, but you all should have taken ownership or whatever. Like, what do you say to that?
So by the time we get there, we've already failed a few times. This is political education. So this project is so that we need to educate white people, we need to educate black people, because we're all in this United States together and we share a polity together. We failed in our quality of education, and we failed mostly because of white terrorism. We failed just because like we don't teach white terrorism in schools. We might teach about Reconstruction. We don't teach about post-Reconstruction, where black people were scared and terrorized. Look, post-Reconstruction Athens was something like the Taliban in Afghanistan. You have no idea. And like I'll bring receipts when we do an entire show on post-Reconstruction Athens. Like post-Reconstruction Athens, if you were black, you were like pretty much under the Taliban in Afghanistan. That quality of terror has consequences. It makes some people very rich, it makes some people very poor. So in redress to that state-sanctioned political terror, I'm gonna need a cut. In this case, I'm gonna need both a cut of future work and a little bit of back pay. And that's the claim we make in education, so that Bill Gates, and we get the quality of black politics that will force educational interventions that will eventually lead to the quality of citizenry that can hear this argument. So we don't just need me, we need like thousands of me's in addition to thousands of people who got the presentation I gave to Oconee Street. Hundreds of thousands, millions of those quality of white people who now know, and let me be clear, they know the legacy of black terrorism. And they know it to a tune that they saw it in their mind, not necessarily their heart, in their mind to give over the money as a matter of right for this institution. So we need a better quality of white person, and that better quality of white person will come through an educational intervention. Because none of the problems, and I'm gonna keep going for a second, none of the problems that we face as black people in America are because of black people. I'll say that again. None of the problems we face in America, the community's problems, as black people in America are because of black people. And any black person who tells you that is worried about a white check. I'll say that again. Any black person who tells you, what camera are we on? Are we gonna go right to the camera? I'll tell you, right in the camera. You can cut this out. All right, we're doing this? Any black person who tells you that in America, the black community's problems are because of the black community is worried about a white check.
We don't have a culture of poverty?
we have a culture of poverty because of white terrorism. Okay. We have a culture of terrorism. We have a culture of black people not being able to speak to white people as equals because of terrorism. And that's a problem. We have a culture of black people not being able to advocate for black people because of white terrorism. And we have a culture that doesn't even have, like white terrorism should be on a t-shirt, and it should be like the most, you should know about white terrorism, the way, you should associate white terrorism and the black civil rights movement in the same way you associate like King's Dream.
Why you have so many babies then?
Why you have so many babies?
Yeah.
Because like, look, that's like what? We can't have sex? Black people, not only that, you can't have sex. Why are you having sex? Like, you don't get pleasure. What, you think you're black? You don't get pleasure? What are you having pleasure for, thinking you can have an orgasm? Like, these uppity Negroes thinking they can just have orgasms and have, and like, that's like, by what right do you think, no. By what right you think you can have pleasure? No, don't you know you're black in America? You don't get pleasure. You get pleasure on our timetable. That means you get a kid, maybe. And if I have a farm and I can hire your kids for nothing, you can have 5. Like that's like they tell. I don't police. I think black people should have sex. So that's why we have.
And there are actually studies that show part of the reason that we have reckless sometimes behaviors because we don't have anything that shows us that planning and having deliberate or considering a lot of consequences doesn't have a reward.
It doesn't have a reward. It's not just an ideology.
And that's the reason people. That's the reason people do that. The reason people, think about things and decide how, what the consequence is and weigh it, because they know how it's going to end. Being poor is nothing but unending instability. So.
And we'll talk about generational poverty, not like, I'm just a black sheep because I tried meth that one time. this is a
There's
problem.
no one time.
I'm just saying, like, this is a problem when, like, people say, like, well, white people are poor too. I'm like, well, like, in some pockets of West Virginia, they're generationally poor, like black people are. But according to the numbers, like, they're not. They have a class structure.
Yeah.
You have poor white people, you have middle class white people, you have upper class white people, and then you have, like, the super rich. And, like, sometimes within the same family, sometimes you have to go to an extended family. But there's a class structure to white wealth, and it was a class structure built on supporting the white community. Whereas in the black community, insofar as we have a handful of wealthy Negroes, those black people got money with a white check, or at the discretion of some white businessmen. So that's not the same quality of class structure. First of all, we don't have a class structure. We have like flat, 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 flat. And then at our top 1%, they have at our top 1%, these are the richest of the rich. Richest of the rich. Net worth of $1.4 million. All right, this is the richest of the rich black people. Net worth is $1.4 million. That means you have 2 houses in California. I'm from California. I'm from California, and like a good black person in California, I'm priced out of California, and I'm now settling down in Athens, Georgia. Because, like, the richest of the rich black people have 2 houses in California. That means that's nothing. That means, like, the richest of the rich black people, that 1%, if you have and then, like, yeah, the top 1% has, like, $4 million. So, like, the top 1% of black people can't even buy neighborhoods and be treated like, like middle-class white people. Because $1.4 million, if you know money, if that's your top 1%, that's not a lot of money. And we don't have any money going into that. I think at the top 95%, those people are worth $355,000. That means your top 5%, is worth a house. All right? And not even like the nicest house. Your top 5% is worth a good house. And that's not the quality of capital to compete with Jeff Bezos' kids. That's not even the quality of capital to compete with Bertus Downs or Doc Eldridge, or like, I'm trying to just name known wealthy white people, and like Bill Cowser. Look, I don't care. I'm here for black people. That means like, we're gonna have to take all these guys on in due time. Bertus, by the way, thank you for donating. And if you want to go, if you find yourself watching this, if you want to go to thefunkyacademic.com, I actually appreciate your work. I just don't think it should be your work. I think it should be, give me the camera again. I think it should be the work of the government as a matter of rights. We shouldn't have to demand political education through something like this, and I shouldn't have to go to church. It should be on a curriculum. It should be mediated through the government as a matter of right, and everybody get it. So, like, I think what you're doing is great. I just don't think it should be at your discretion. Right? I don't think all rights claims should be at your discretion. So, if you want to, I can lift the burden from you, or help lift the burden of trying to fund the black community's uplift in one shot. If you want to go over to the website and kick down a little, yeah. So my job is to make your job easier. I don't think you should have to do all the philanthropy you're doing. So like. One way to help me do my job is to, and this isn't just about Bertus. If you're tired of nonprofits doing the work that should be done by right and be guaranteed by government, don't just fund me. Fund anybody who wants black politics to be guaranteed by the government, and black politics to be organized by black people and guaranteed by the government and not by nonprofits and their nonprofit boards, who, since to be on a board of a nonprofit, you need money, aren't going to be black. So I'm trying to lift the burden of that charity and place it appropriately as a matter of right, and a place where we can be contested. Because honestly, give me the 2-shot again. I don't want to be that wealthy around people who are that poor and have everyone hit me up for money. I don't want to be known as the guy who gives. I can't have a real relationship if I know. First of all, Bertus, we can be friends because like I might hit you up for money, but I'm also going to treat you like an equal. But like I wouldn't want to be the guy who's known for for charity just because I can't have any authentic relationships because everyone has their eyes in my pocket. Like, that's not freedom. That's not freedom for anybody. And I want everybody to be free.
Them their hands.
What the? Their hand. No, because like white people have the cops, so like you put your hand there, you might not get that hand back. So like
I'm talking about in your pocket.
No, my pocket.
Yeah, those are hands in your pocket that you feel.
Yeah.
People are not looking at it.
People are not looking at it. Yeah. Everyone's got their hand in your pocket, and like that's no way to live. And I want to live. I want to live.
I wouldn't know. My pocket's shallow. But go on, sorry.
So it'll free everybody if we free black people. And the way we free black people is getting the quality of political education that will talk about white terrorism for what it is and do it in school so everybody knows that black justice claims are not a matter of charity and that black justice claims are a matter of right and they can be contested and they're not at anyone's pleasure. But they can be worked out through law.
People always ask for a solution.
People ask for a solution.
So what's the step one to a solution?
The step one to a solution is sharing this video. Step one to a solution, share this video where we discuss that why charity is not the same as justice and why black people need justice and not charity. Share this video, like this video, tell your friends. Because the solution's going to go through media and education. First, we need to create a better quality of white person, and then we need to create the quality of black person who knows that when you talk to a white person, you're doing it as an equal, even if you need money from them. You're doing it as an equal. You're temporarily disenfranchised equal, but like you're an equal, right? And we need to habituate the quality of black self-determination that talks to white people as equals. That means making demands of them and then drilling down and going through those tiers, because there will be tiers and there'll be white lady tiers, and it's not going to matter because you're talking about justice for black people that's owed. That means going through the quality of tears and hurt feelings and so-called divisiveness that ends in a check for your justice and for your defense. Because right now we're talking about political defense. Give me the two-shot again. So when we talk about, often it's the case that when we consider being neutral or apolitical or anti-political, it's not a matter of defense. It's just like, I'm just opting out. Other people can be political. But that's not how it works in a jungle. Like, that's not how it works in our life. That's not how it works with, like, carnivorous capitalism. Thank you for coming. Thank you. No, it's fine. That's not how it works. Like, if you don't have a defense, you're going to get eaten. Like, you can have a nice little business in Hot Corner until, I don't know, Carl Nichols or Wes, like, decides he wants that. The developers, wealthy developers, decide that they want the town, and then you're going to get eaten. They're going to decide that they want it, and they're going to take it, and they're going to go through the machinations it takes to get it. All right? So you need a political defense. All right, and a black political defense is going to come through a black politics and black economic power. And like, we need a political power to defend our black economic power. So people who think that they're apolitical, you're just naive. Not only you're naive, you're a problem. You're a problem because you're destabilizing our community and you're destabilizing any efforts we can make at defense. Am I speaking a lie?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right. So we educate people in the need for black political defense, lest we continue in the vein that has existed since Reconstruction, where we thrive and fall at the discretion of white capital and without any real rights. Right? You don't have any real rights in America, black people. They're at the privilege of white political and economic power until and unless we organize for a counterpower that's just asking for justice, or in Yvette's case, maybe a little bit more. I want justice plus. Super justice. Super justice. So I'm going to take some questions from the audience. All right? So I'm going to need a few things. Joe, can you man the audience cam?
Yeah.
And do you mind, if you have a question, there's a microphone right there in front. And please, I've said some provocative things. So it'd be great if someone could have a question. There's a Congressman Sims was there, and I thank him for his attendance. And Congressman Sims is leaving. All right, so here's the deal. We need the quality of black political power that will Commissioner. We need the quality of black political power that will serve as defense. Now you can just keep it on me until someone feels like they should ask a question. I mean, the quality of political defense that will fight for black people. And you'll have the quality of political defense. And I wish the congressman were here, because this is the commissioner was here, because this is a general axiom that you should know. You have the quality of black leadership you need when your black political leader is going to say no to white capital in defense of the black community. You have the quality of black political leadership you need when your commissioner is willing to say no to white capital and all of the influences that it comes with in defense of black in the black community in closed doors. All right? So if your black political leader isn't willing to do that, that black political leader doesn't really work for you. That black political leader works for white capital. So just going forward in the upcoming election season, make sure you keep that in mind, that anyone who says that they speak for anyone who says that they speak for black politics or are going to advocate for black politics, that means advocating for black politics against, in contest with white capital. And if they are willing to stand for you against white capital, I say those are the quality of people we need. And those are the quality of people we need to support. And those might even be the quality of people we need to protect. Am I telling a lie of it?
No, we have to protect good leaders. That's part of the problem.
Then they get shot. Mm-hmm. And by the way, if anything happens to me or mine, I want to live. Give me the camera there. All right, so if anyone... People at home watching.
You feeling some kind of way?
Yeah, well, okay. Look, if anything happens to me and mine, I did not commit suicide. I'm a smiley, happy guy. I like my life. I like my books. I like my projects. I did not go down by my own hand. It was a setup, and I do not forgive nobody. I don't forgive anybody, and nobody's forgiving anything on my behalf. If anyone says that he would have forgiven, no. I need you to shut it down. And not just a little bit, I'm talking bricks and Molotov cocktails. If I'm going out, I need the whole community to go out. And if it comes from something in Athens, I need you to start in 5 points. Like if I end up in a body bag, I need you to tear down 5 points. And then just work out. Leave Nellie be alone. Go loot over there and loot. Luke, take all that property.
He causing too much trouble. I'm going to tell him you seem depressed.
No, I'm not depressed. I'm happy. I'm just saying I also want to live. So they know if they take me down, if anything happens, if I trip, if I get a parking ticket, shut it down. I'm not forgiving anybody.
We seen you drive.
Anybody who forgives anybody on my behalf is a lie. All right, that's my insurance policy, this video. Black people, anybody, and white allies, I need you out there with a brick too. If something happens to me, I need you shutting down chambers of commerce. I need you shutting down anything that, like, anyone who looks like they didn't give me money, like for this show, I need you shutting them down. Which means, if you don't want to be caught as collateral damage in the post-IME apocalypse, because it's going to be ugly, you need to say that, like, I'm a pillar of the community, and this is white allies and black allies, and so that, like, people know that if they mess with me or mess with mine, we're coming for you, and I do not forgive. That's a scam, and that's a scandal, and that's not my life. So the accountability structure in, like, we'll do the two-shot now. The accountability structure in for black rights that goes through white nonprofits and their nonprofit boards is never going to lead to black justice. And the accountability structure that says, as a black person, I can't stand up and ask my question, I can't stand up and ask my piece, even in my own form, that's a problem. That's a problem. Because I'll tell you right now, if I were you listening to me, and I'm talking to the black people, I hold everyone accountable. If I were you listening to me, I'd be at that microphone. So we got to work on that. We got to work on the quality of black citizenship that's scared to demand, that's scared to be seen demanding. And that is a problem, but that is also a project, and we got time. Time is on our side. So is there a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, come to the microphone. Come to the microphone. Yeah. Like the white guy in a black space asks a question. That's generational stability. That's what that looks like. I can ask a question. Yeah, I'm not gonna do anything. I just want to ask a question. That's what generational stability looks like. Am I wrong a bit? I don't know. I think that's what generational stability looks like.
Is that why I'm up here?
Well, no. It's just that you have a question, you want to ask it. Believe it or not, that's what freedom looks like. It's just having a question and asking it. And if you can't do that, then you're not free. And anybody who's scared to do that, you ain't free either. But we're all in it together, and I'm working for your freedom. Jesse, give it to me.
Cool. So first of all, I really appreciate what you said here today.
Oh, thanks, man.
I'm going to be looking into a lot of the sources you recommended. I appreciate that. Both
I
of you,
have books,
actually.
And as this grows, there'll be many sources, yes.
Cool. So you've argued that black people don't have rights.
No, we have privileges.
Right.
And privileges that aren't nearly as strong as the people who have privileges that want to eat.
Right.
Our privileges are mediated through white organizations, or insofar as they're funded by black organizations, they can't actually compete.
Right.
Yes.
So then I want to follow that with that line of thought with who in the United States does have rights.
All right, so rights, insofar as you're with someone with privileges, rights don't actually exist. We have a rights discourse that really is just the play between, and this is something Harold Cruz actually has right in his book, and that, once again, that book is The Crisis of the Negro Intellectual, and came out in '68, but it's really good. It's really good. It's a lot of books, but I think it's important. I think it's good. Rights, we have a rights discourse, but what we have is just privileges backed by certain groups. All right? So if you have a group that backs your privilege and then says, when you talk about the way what we're doing, just call it a right, that's America. That's America. Because if...
Red Nose, Africa.
Yeah, talk to me. Come to the microphone. Yeah. If you have something to say, come to the microphone. Everybody speaks.
Yes,
we
sir.
meet people where they're at.
Yes, sir.
I just have to ask, once you get your question done.
My name's Sunday Watt, freedom of speech.
Yes.
I did something one time for the university, for the city.
Yes.
I'm that small, like an ant got a colony.
Yeah, a lot of us are ants, man.
I'm a human being.
Yeah. Say that again. Say that
I'm a human being.
Actually, look into the camera. The camera's over by that white guy right there. Say that one more time.
I'm a human being.
Yes. All right. Talk to me.
When I came here, when I first born,
Yes.
in the hospital,
Yes.
it was Average Joe. Now we changed it, Average Piedmont Hospital. I finished school at 16. They told me never say nothing. I'm still a detective. I stay under the detective.
Okay. I'm gonna have to ask you for a question coming up. Yes.
Ask me.
No. I need you to ask. I thought you had a question for something I said.
Do you love yourself?
Do I love myself? Yes, I do.
Not you. I ain't talking about you. Do you love yourself?
Do I love myself?
I'm gonna tell you about me.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they name me Sammy Lee. Ain't no Bruce Lee. Imitate Jesus. What Jesus do?
Good. All right, so thank you, my man. Thank you. Thank you for having the courage to ask your question, and thank you for standing up and taking up space. Yeah. Come on. First of all, when people talk about Jesus, there's a lot of talk of justice in that Bible that doesn't get. Is this Mr. Hamilton? Sir, good. I know he's going to have a question. Yeah, all right, thank you. Yes.
I guess my question would be, how do you balance? We all know that we need to speak louder and be heard,
Yes.
but we're not always in an environment that allows you to do that. And there's a lot of unlearning necessary to do that. Where do you start?
Where do you start the unlearning? Where do you start to unlearn habits of like that emerged from like white terrorism?
I think it comes from political education. I think there are a lot of good books that teach everything that needs to be unlearned. But what happens is that we are part of a culture that doesn't allow that space, right? And we don't even give those people attention. How many times have we mentioned, nobody, if you read When Affirmative Action Was White, nobody who reads that would say black people asking for a handout. You just couldn't say it. You just wouldn't say it. But the problem is you haven't had access to those ideas. You haven't had access to that information. And this, the job of this public schooling is to force you to have access to that kind of information, and it fails.
Right.
So that's where we are. So I would get a hold of a good book list.
Yeah.
And just make that happen.
I think Vet's right. And here's the deal. Like, our history has been managed for black poverty management, the history that we're taught in schools. And that's an educational intervention that should happen at your school board level and then move down. And we need to, this is one thing the right gets right. They want creation in schools. They don't care if it's true. I want it in schools. I want to teach it. So we need, as a black politics who cares about rights for black people and rights for everyone, not just privileges, rights for everyone, we need to get the quality of political education that will make our claim into the school district, right? Into the schools. And if we do that, we can have the conversation with a knowledgeable polity that will can contest and negotiate our claims. And since we're on the side of right, I think we'll win. So the first thing is going to be teaching black political education and the history of white terrorism in the United States. Right? The problem is going to be when you don't teach that history, myth fills the vacuum. Right? And I'll say that again. When you don't teach history, myth fills the vacuum. And the myth that fills the vacuum is a myth that slavery ended, in 1964. That's a myth. It fills the vacuum. You don't teach history. You don't teach the history of white terrorism. Myth will fill that vacuum, and the myth will be calibrated for white comfort. I'll say that again. When you don't teach black history, when you don't teach the history of white terrorism, because this is white history too. When you don't teach that history, myth fills the vacuum, and that myth will be calibrated for white comfort. So those are the stakes. Right. Next question. Mr. Hamilton or?
He's already asked one.
No, go ahead.
Is it okay?
Oh, yeah, good.
All right. So I teach government civics.
Okay, good.
And I'm wondering, from either one of you or both of you, I'm wondering about, so you've spoken about, and I believe
Can you
this
do it
too,
close to the microphone to make sure?
how important it is that political empowerment be taught toward
Yes.
in the school system, public school system.
Yes.
And I'm wondering about how both of you envision that happening. If you could just magic wand today, make it happen.
That happens.
What are some components that you think are vital for that?
I want access to the curriculum. I want access to what's considered a mandatory history education. I want access. I want to teach the history of white terrorism in the schools. And if you do it through consultants, maybe at the beginning, maybe that's something. But consultants are in a well-ordered world, this is a matter of right, and not just in black schools. We need it in black schools just so black people don't blame themselves. What I said about politicians before, about how that black politicians are for you if they will stand up to white capital in defense of the black community. You also know politicians are against you if the first thing they do when you talk about black political empowerment, black economic empowerment, is blame black people. So yeah, you need access to the curriculum, and that happens at the school board. So run for school board, support school board members who want this quality of education taught in the schools, and then the people who don't want this quality of education taught in the schools, kick them out, and organize for that.
And it can't be a compartmentalized. What a lot of times happens in these schools, they compartmentalize. They'll give you an African American history course, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this is American history. You just can't give me this one class and see, we're diverse now. We have. No, I need this to be in American history. I need this to be in world history. I need this to be in civics 101. All of this stuff is all American history, and it has to be in all of that. It can't just be in one thing. And so I think that's part of what you have to do. And it's not even just history. Part of this stuff is, who did what, where, when, and science and everything else. And that has to happen, but it has to be aggressive and it has to be full-throated. It can't just be a line here, a person there. You're talking Christmas adding stuff. You're talking like a few people, dropping a few black names. No, talk about what really happened. It has to be in all your courses.
Terrorism, white terrorism. Because you can't talk about black poverty right now without white terrorism. And anybody who tries to tell you can talk about black poverty without bringing in white terrorism either doesn't know history or is looking out for a white check. Sister, you had a question?
I was just going to ask. Sorry. I hate microphones. I was just going to ask just an example of, when you talk about white capital and black politicians, is there an example that you can think of here in Athens where that has occurred, and where do we go wrong? Where do black politicians particularly kind of go wrong in that?
I'm going to have an entire series of show because we're doing local black politics in Athens. I'm going to have an entire series of show. I want to have Ken Dias on. We're going to talk. We're going to name names and dig up all the graves, and if they're still alive, we're going to name their names anyway. And if anything happens to us, once I said, I don't forgive anybody, shut it down. We're gonna name names, dig up all the graves, and figure out where the operation of white terrorism on the black community, where it happened, and why black people just keep moving. We had a black community here, and then white people wanted it, so they move us over here, and then white people want it, so they move us here. And honestly, if white people want this neighborhood right here, there's no foregone conclusion that there'll be black people here in 20 years. And right now, black people are a third of Athens. It's not a foregone conclusion. And that's why I'm talking about black political defense here every Friday. You take one more or wrap it
up? You can take one more.
I'll take two more. Mr. Hamilton, come on.
What I was going to say is something about the question that you asked.
The microphone for the people watching at home.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm new to this.
Yeah, that's all right.
So
think about the people watching at home.
These issues are so complex for many reasons, and what you're talking about in terms of education is very important, and it goes to the video that you and Yvette have been talking about as it relates to Fred Hampton and his whole emphasis on educating and how education, you needed that, and without that in the African American community, if you didn't have it, you would have Negro imperialists, and that's what you're fighting against now. You're fighting against the concept of Negro imperialists and people who have bought into what capitalism and white capitalism have sold black people in terms of success. And what's deeper about that is that even when you get into black institutions, it's very difficult to even have this discussion because even the people who are at the table have to be re-educated. And let me give you a prime example. So when I went to the new museum in D.C., in my estimation, and it has been open to a lot of fanfare, and the lines are long, and there are people who are, that are really excited about it, and it's the most visited thing. It is woefully inadequate. Woefully inadequate.
Is it a problem?
No, very problematic. Like, let me give you one example. So, you guys talked about on your show a few weeks back about Booker T. Washington, and you said that if Booker T. talked about how if you ever got enough black support, unity, to even overthrow just one slave plantation, and once you arrived at Master's Gates, the black slaves there would be there
first
to fight you.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing with society. Well, in the African American History Museum, pay particularly close to that effect as it relates to their display on the Haitian Revolution. It is woefully inadequate. It discusses Toussaint
I think
Louverture.
you need to use a stronger word than inadequate. It's dangerous. It's
It's very dangerous. So if you know anything about the Haitian Revolution and Toussaint Louverture, well, you cannot complete that story, even if we accept it as a presupposition that the Haitian Revolution is the only successful overthrow, slave rebellion that actually overthrew anything. If we actually accept that, and of course we just had the movie with Nate Parker and the slave uprising there. But even if we accept that Haiti was in fact an authentic revolution and an overthrow, a slave rebellion, you have to continue the story, which the museum doesn't, because Toussaint Louverture was ultimately overthrown.
Yep.
And he was sold out by his right-hand man, Dessalines, to Napoleon. He winds up the rest of his life, in jail. I think he was executed, wasn't he, by Napoleon? But in the museum, they don't even deal with that.
Yeah, triumphalist history.
This is a Pan-Africanist problem too, because the Pan-Africanists romanticize Africa in the sense that it excludes the bad narratives. Well, if you don't deal with that in the African American History Museum, the biggest place in America that houses our history, supposedly, allegedly, if you don't deal with what white or black betrayal, because we're talking about history, right? Then you can never get to the ultimate effect of white supremacy, which is to divide and conquer. You see what I'm saying?
And divide and conquer, they don't deal with the mulatto issue either.
Yeah,
they had their whole caste system and everything. And
right, you don't deal with that. You never get to the point of Barack Obama granting a pardon to the Puerto Rican revolutionary who many white people call a terrorist. He pardoned him because he went to a play with Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's Puerto Rican, but guess who he didn't pardon? He didn't pardon Marcus Garvey.
Okay.
Marcus Garvey never killed anybody.
No.
Marcus Garvey never terrorized anybody.
No.
Only thing, he's probably the greatest example in America of a black person actually achieving some sense of independence.
He got kicked out. Didn't Garvey get
He was
twice?
prosecuted and
and extradited. Well,
right, and
not
his
extradited, but sent out the country.
And his family petitioned Barack Obama to pardon him posthumously, and he refused. But he granted a pardon to the Puerto Rican revolutionary, who many white people regard as terrorists. Because why? Because he liked to play Hamilton. You see what I'm saying? So if we're going to get into talking about education, who really wants to think hard about this stuff? Martin Luther King said, history is filled with half-baked solutions to complex problems. Nothing pains some people more than having to think. So how many people do we really have at the table who are actually thinking?
It's a project. Yeah, you don't get to the table. That's the problem of living like in a legacy of white terrorism. You don't get to the table by contesting white power. You don't get to the table. Is am I wrong here?
No, but so what do you do with the people at the table?
Well,
that's why I said
that becomes the issue.
That's what I said.
Them first.
Well, that's why I said. Well, see that I struggle with that. That's what I meant when I said Motel 6 Negroes. It says like Motel 6 will leave the light on for you, because if I take that approach, I got to do away with everybody.
Yeah. Or
re-educate. Just understand that your project means re-educating everyone.
It is very difficult. It is very.
But the ones who know they need to be re-educated. Some don't feel they need to be re-educated. Feel like they know.
Well, they need to be organized around and then take
right.
that.
And the last thing I say is so the concept, and that's why I believe Fred Hammond is arguably maybe the greatest black leader. He's one. That video is so powerful.
Yeah,
I go back
so many levels. Yeah.
It is so powerful because what we have today is a lot of Negro imperialists.
Right. For lack of black political education.
I look at Jay-Z, I look at Beyonce, I look at Oprah, I look at Tyler, I look at all these people who the accoutrements of success has given them status to talk on behalf of black people and say what needs to be happening. But are any of them really contesting white supremacy? Let's not even go there.
Yeah,
are any of them really free?
No. Not a
You
one.
got Oprah Winfrey in a store in Europe saying, well, maybe I should have cleaned up before I came in here, and the woman would have thought I was somebody.
And with the assumption and suggestion being that black people aren't clean, for you to say you should have cleaned up because you looked fine, you had on clothes, you didn't go in there disheveled or homeless looking, you were fine, but you said maybe I should have done more, which means that as a black woman, I automatically look somewhat dirty, so I should have gone over the top in order for them to perceive me as a human being worthy of buying merchandise.
Yeah, and I see this.
Worthy of giving you my money.
But it's amazing you have. So this is why I say money doesn't mean freedom.
It doesn't.
It doesn't mean freedom. You have too many black people at that level of success who fail to really do anything collectively for us. So just because we have a black man with a Bugatti or a woman with a network, what does that mean? What have black people?
But can you even say money means money? Like if you're not controlling the money or where you get the money from. If that money can go away, right? If you don't even control the stock market. So you say I have investments. Watch when you say some stuff, how quickly those investments can dry up and your investments go bad and people won't invest with you anymore. See, the thing about it is everybody, I don't even care if you're Oprah, everybody that's around you has all the social capital. Mm-hmm. So if they decide, Oprah, we're not doing no more Weight Watchers with you. We're not doing no more on TV with you. We decided we're not doing anything else with you. Let's see how much Oprah can do and how free she is.
Yeah, that's real talk. I mean, and look no further than Atlanta. If you were to take, if an economist was to do an actual study of black progress versus white progress since Maynard Jackson came to office. You and I had this conversation. Yeah. Who do you think has excelled more? In Atlanta, white people have. So now you're looking at the prospect of a white mayor. That's probably going to happen this go round. Yeah. But you look at black projects.
I think Kasim was the last one.
But look at two things you did. You shut down black low-income housing. All the black projects in Atlanta shut down. They're gone. You criminalize black begging, panhandling, and homelessness. Mm-hmm. You shut down. All that's gone. But what were you doing at the same time? You were making it easier for white people collectively to come back in the city and take over. Grant Park, when I was growing up, was an all-black neighborhood. In the city, but what they did was because black wealth was not able to be passed on as a function of unemployment and crime and all that stuff. So we were giving houses away under black administration in the 90s for $50 a pop. If you would move on it, get a home loan and fix it up. Now you can't get over there for less than $500,000. No, you can't. So now you are facing the prospect that black mayoral leadership made it better for white people than it did for black people. This is a real problem. And I would even argue, and here's where I have to grow as a person. This is real talk, because I get very angry when I talk about this. I get very angry. I just rolled through my city, and I'm looking at all these black neighborhoods with the white people walking their little dogs, and the whole neighborhoods have been taken over. So when I look at that, here's the thing. Kasim Reed doesn't understand nothing we're talking about. Andy Young, who is a great friend of mine who I've had spirited debates with about this, about how you made the city better for white people. I thought you misunderstood me on the show. I wasn't arguing for him. I was arguing in support of you. But Andy Young and the whole internationalization and getting Atlanta ready for the Olympics and making it better for white, he set black people back in a major way.
Well, let me ask you a quick question since we're talking about mayors. Do people remember how Bill Campbell, didn't he go to jail?
Yep.
Didn't he go to jail for like corruption in terms of hooking up black people and doing some other stuff? I'm not saying that's all what it was, but the limitations of power, like the symbol of having a black man. People forget even we love Maynard. A lot of black people, and I get it, but in terms of people forget about the strike and the garbage man who got fired, the black garbage man. I mean, it's the limitations of that kind of power, even in a majority black city.
In a one biter.
But you know what the issue is? And I don't want to belabor this, but here's the issue: is that most of the black people that are aspiring to power are accepting a white model of leadership. So for example, I had a young lady who called me and asked me for a letter of recommendation. And I said to her, I looked in her face, and I said, in no way would I ever write you a letter of recommendation. And if I'm ever in a position to stop your rise, I will. Now, why did I say this? Well, I said this because at our alma mater, Howard University, some years ago, they had the president in the midst of black students getting evicted from the dorms.
Yep.
In the midst of faculty being furloughed and staff being laid off, all type of austerity measures, raising tuition. The president of Howard University gave $3.5 million in bonuses to black executives. And it was a big uproar in the Alumni Association of this. And I said, well, this sounds a lot like Wall Street. Well, this young lady who asked me for a recommendation, her response to that was, why are you getting upset? White people do that all the time. We should be able to do that too.
Well, that's the same thing you saw with Obama going back to Wall Street.
Yeah.
They do it all the time, so, why can't we? They get away with crime. Why can't
Any
we get away
black
with
person
crime?
who says that, like anytime you hear a black person say, well, white people do that all the time, they need to be exited out.
We need a transformative politics.
Yep.
Black politics needs to be transformative.
Yeah, but they don't. What we miss is that they're not trying to be transformative. We've always said to ourselves, well, these black leaders, they won't change. What they really want, they see the pie and they want a piece of the pie.
Yep.
Whether or not you get a piece of the pie or I get a piece of the pie, that's not the thing. They are upset at the fact that they cannot get a piece of the pie individually. See, when and you're exactly right. When I start hearing people talk about things individually, that's a problem for me. That rings a bell for me. Why do you keep talking about, well, I want to get that. If I could do it, if I was able to do it, I would do it too. I would do the same thing he did. And so what you're saying is that I will get over, I will be a hustler, I will be a con artist, whatever I got to do to get what they got.
What they're saying is that they want to be white.
Yep. And some think they already are.
They think that. Look at South Africa. Look at South Africa. Look at what has Nelson Mandela's movement truly done for South Africa. The people there are as impoverished as they ever was. You only traded one oppressor for another, a white oppressor for a black oppressor. And that is what Fred Hammond was talking about in that video. When he said Negro imperialism.
And that's what happened when the people don't have an education to look at their politicians and make an assessment. See, what we have now is an assessment where we see a connection view through skin color, right? And there is no assessment of what is your ideology, what are your plans in terms of this collective community. And then people will even tell you, well, I would rather the black person steal than the white person steal than he gets it, with no kind of knowledge that if nothing's passing down to you and your community, it doesn't benefit you, and you should throw him on the street as quick as you would throw a white politician off in the street. That's just it. Yeah, sometimes
let it be known inside the house. All right, we got to end it because these people,
okay,
they got to go home. All right, hey, look, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for the premiere of the Black Athenians. Going to be here next Friday at 4 o'clock. It's going to be really close to 4 o'clock. Hey, look, I want to thank everyone for their patience. I want to thank everyone for making this happen. We're building a black politics. It starts on Friday at 4 o'clock here. And go share this with your friends. Tell your friends. Go over to the Funky Academic. Is that okay? Go over to thefunkyacademic.com. Go over to YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe. And when you subscribe, hit that little bell. The little bell will tell you when I'm on. So, like, you'll know when we're talking black politics here in Athens. And we're doing local black politics. So if we can fix it in Athens, we can fix it in Mobile, we can fix it in Savannah, we can fix it in Columbia. And that is what we're doing now, and that's what we're building. And once again, if something happens to me and mine, I don't forgive nobody. I'm also not done yet. All right. Thank you. Now you can cut it off.
Hey, be thinking.